Hey everyone, welcome to the installation guide for your kinetic wall sculpture from Oh Yeah Visual Arts. Thank you for choosing our creation. Before we dive into the assembly process, here are some crucial points to keep in mind. There are very critical steps all the way through this video. Please do not skip parts, do not skip to the end. Handle with care. Do not overwind or forcefully rotate your sculpture. This can cause damage. Winding instructions. Details on winding your sculpture will be given at the end of this video. The maximum safe number of times of winding are between 28 and 30. Always leave 3 to 5 unwound turns on the spring at the base to prevent unraveling and potential damage. Assistance. Should you encounter any issues, please reach out to us for support. Installation location. Avoid installing in windy areas as the wind can disrupt the delicate balance of your sculpture. Sound notice. The sculpture produces a light clicking noise that some find soothing. Consider this when choosing the installation spot. Now let's begin with the assembly. This is the box as it would arrive to you. There's a QR code to take a picture with your phone, and that would link you to this video, so I guess you've already clicked on that much. Here's a bag with all of your supplies. Set these wheels aside for now. Use the provided template to mark the wall for installation. For precision, you can use the small bubble level on the template. However, the sculpture can function correctly even if the base is not perfectly level. This template will help you give an overall size at a minimum of the sculpture and where you may want to locate it.
近点。
这些省胶可以不用拍了。
我不太清楚。好，跟过来。看这里，看这个泡。好，可以了，放远点。近点。拍我，看我怎么做的。近点，不要近远。
你重来一遍吧。
再近点。看我的地方。好，等一下，就上。
There are 3 marking positions. These are the mounting holes that correspond with the base. If you'd like to make sure your sculpture is perfectly level, then you would just remove the adhesive from the bubble level, take care that you have the template flipped in the proper direction. Stick the bubble as level as you can to the line, and then you would take the template and you would tape the template up on the wall in the location that you're looking for, and then transfer the mounting holes. This will give you the most accurate way to level the base. However, as long as the base is in a mostly vertical position, then it doesn't require precise leveling. In your goodie bag, you'll have 2 long nuts, one with spacers and a nut, one with just a nut, and then an acorn, a captive nut. Take the, and you'll notice that each of these, here's a blank spacer, a number 1 spacer, a 2, and a 3. Take the nut off of the large bolt, slide the spacers off, hold them for later, and begin to insert the bolt from the back of the back of the base. It is a tight fit. Just wind the base on using the threads like you would normally screw in a screw. And then align the hex head of the bolt so that it lines up with the slot. You can then add the nut, and then the larger the 2 provided wrenches. Tighten the nut, and it will begin to pull the bolt into the slot, and continue tightening until flush along the back. Now take the smaller of the 2 screws, remove the nut, the acorn nut, and the smaller nut. And that would slide in the bottom hole. And then take that nut, with your finger holding the bolt in, go ahead and get it started. And then the smaller of the 2 wrenches provided, tighten that up so it's snug. And then at this point, this is when you would mount the base to the wall in your location. Again, using the screws and the anchors if needed provided. Through the 3 holes that are marked in the template. It's crucial at this point that you would mount this, because if you continue to assemble, you can no longer get to these holes once the sculpture continues to be assembled. You'd also now insert the unmarked spacer onto the stud. Add the spring assembly, and be sure that it slides over top of both screws. And now you would take the acorn nut and put it on the small lower wheel that holds the spring. And at this point you would tighten that up with the smaller of the 2 wrenches so it's snug. And now you'd add the spacer with 1 line to the larger screw on the top. And then we'd start assembling the inner rotating wheel. The inner rotating wheel does not have the Oh Yeah Visual Arts logo on it. And when you flip this wheel over, you'd see that there are some highlighted areas. There's a set of arms in your box that are marked with an X. That would be this arm. And then on this band, there's another arm marked with an X. These have to be located on top of these highlighted portions of the inner wheel. Use the alignment pin in one hole to line up where you will now install a screw on the back hole. I'll be using a drill to speed this up. If you are using a power tool, please be careful that you do not damage the sculpture by over tightening. We do provide a screw, so all the tools needed are provided with the sculpture. And be sure to locate these two and secure them. Then you can continue in order around the rest of the wheel. Now you could slide this wheel. Your base would be mounted on the wall. You would then slide this wheel onto the upper large screw on top of the spacer. Assemble the front rotating wheel. This wheel is the one that has the Oh Yeah Visual Arts logo on it. These arms do not have any uniqueness to them. They're all the same. Just assemble them in order. The next spacer is the spacer with two marks on it. You would install that onto the larger screw in front of the rear wheel. You can then install the front wheel. Then the final spacer that has three marks on it. And then the cover, the logo cover. You would make sure that that's tight enough to hold everything in place. And that completes the assembly, and we'll now go over how to operate the sculpture. When operating the sculpture, you take your finger and slide it in until it meets the rear wheel. you'd want to just put a couple of turns on it at first just to test and make sure everything's okay with your assembly. This seems to be operating fine. At most here you would not exceed 28 to 30 turns. The main thing to look at is how many spring winds are still left on the lower sprocket. You want to always leave at least 3 to 5 revolutions of spring on the lower sprocket. If it is overwound, the spring can unravel and cause damage to the sculpture. Full winding is not necessary for operation. If you only turn it 10 times, it will still operate. It just won't run for as long. So the more you turn it, the longer it will run, but we don't want to overturn it to where we're causing any damage. So it's a little better to be safe than sorry. If at any point during operation or the life of the sculpture the spring does become loose on the bottom sprocket, you can simply insert your fingers and put a revolution or two on that spring to try and rotate it and try and tighten it. We appreciate your business. Please leave us a review, share a photo of your sculpture, and enjoy the dynamic beauty it adds to your space. Thanks for watching and enjoy your kinetic wall sculpture.